It's not the first time that Kenya and Tanzania are at loggerheads, and what's behind the persistent feuds between these two countries, and how can the two nations sort out their differences is the question. Joining me online to discuss this issue is Karimi, a lecturer of international relations and economics at the USIU-Africa. Kristen, just to jump right into it, what do you make of the current border feud between Kenya and Tanzania?
First of all, it's not the first time that Kenya and Tanzania are having an issue. We've seen it before with the previous EAC when it broke down in 1977. Kenya and Tanzania has had a lot of hostility between their people and between the presidents themselves. So it's really not the first time this is happening, only that COVID-19 is making it much, much worse with the difference in ideologies. And even from history, Kenya and Tanzania has hardly shared any ideology. They differ a lot in what they believe in.
All right, as you just said, this is not the first time Kenya and Tanzania are at loggerheads. So what's behind the persistent feuds between the two neighbors?
If you look at the previous EAC, the one that broke down in 1977, then we had different leaders. We had Kenyatta, we had Nyerere, and we had Idi Amin at that time. And you can see the same thing happening now, that Kenyatta, our second Kenyatta, and Magufuli now are not in agreement. Then it was Kenyatta, Idi Amin, and Nyerere that were not in agreement, with the Tanzanians moving towards socialism and Kenyans were moving towards capitalism. Of course, there was that conflict at that time, which saw Kenyans being branded as thieves, as greedy people, as we actually were told we're a man-eat-man society, and Kenya responded by saying Tanzania is a man-eat-nothing society. So it has been a long-standing competition of some sort, and it's a rivalry actually that has extended to this period now. Some of the ideologies they had then actually caused the collapse of the EAC, with Kenya being seen as the predominant partner, overtaking everything. So there's a lack of trust generally, and a lot of hostility towards the Kenyans, even especially the ones living in Tanzania.
So, Christine, what does it say about the state of the East African community now?
It's actually sad to see the way things are going, because we have made such strides with the East African passport and the free economic zone where goods can move from one country to another, though that has issues as well with the Kenya-Tanzania border. But we're actually taking the EAC and the strides we've made so far back to now negotiations and conflict. There is a possibility that this might cause another break of the EAC, but we hope that diplomacy will prevail this time. Because now we have a president who is a bit authoritarian, and he's not easy to convince. He doesn't listen to anybody but himself. The citizens are complaining. There's no room for the kind of freedom there was previously in terms of negotiating and cooperating in the EAC. Now it's Tanzania versus the world, and we don't know how that's going to happen, but that's a dangerous place for the EAC to be in, because Tanzania is a key member of the EAC. But yeah, this could actually be a breaking point for the EAC.
Interesting how you've mentioned it's Tanzania versus the world. It's a very interesting way to term it. But as you've mentioned, Tanzania is a very important party in the EAC. So what does this feud mean for the rest of the EAC partner states?
Funny enough, it's only Tanzania that has a problem, because we don't seem to have a problem with Uganda. We only differing in terms of the measures to be taken during COVID. They have a very laissez-faire approach to COVID, and we have a very strict approach to COVID. And from then, of course, we are questioning their policies. In terms of, sorry, repeat the question. I kind of lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for losing you, my dear. So I'm saying, what does this mean for the rest of the EAC partner states, the partner states?
Okay. So what normally happens in an economic bloc is that people begin to form alliances. So there are those ones who will now fall on the side of Tanzania, which I don't think any of them is, and the others will fall on the side of Kenya and the other countries. Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda are all following, I mean, they're all taking the same measure. So we're in agreement, basically. The only one that is standing out, sticking out, is Tanzania. They're the only ones who are differing. They have a very different opinion as to what's going on. So it may end up being a case of Tanzania versus the EAC bloc, or it may end up being, I mean, hopefully they may negotiate and bring back Tanzania on board. But for the other EAC members, it may bring equal rivalry, because now when you have an agreement and you're forming alliances, cooperation is mostly based on, say, friendship, international friendship, diplomacy. So if one country is breaching this, then it may mean that the other countries also give sanctions. There's something we call reciprocity in international relations. When one country does something, the other countries reciprocate. So if Tanzania is hostile, then the other countries just they do the same thing, which could happen in the EAC. I mean, we could all close our borders and say Tanzania remains on their own. It could happen, which I think is happening now, because now we won't take the kind of laxity that they're taking this situation with. Yeah.
Karimi, as we wind up, in your view, what needs to be done to de-escalate the feud between Kenya and Tanzania? How can the two countries mend these fences, especially at this critical time when the world is battling to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic?
First of all, I think diplomacy is out of the table. Because President Magufuli is adamant to listen. He's curtailed all media freedoms. You have rumors coming from Tanzania that it's very serious, it's very horrible, but he's an authoritarian president, and he has ordered, his word is law. So what needs to happen is exactly what has happened: sanctions, restrict movements. But again, Kenya needs to protect the traders at the border, because now we're hearing that they're being attacked, their goods confiscated, burnt, and all that. So as much as we have restricted entry, we have cessation of movement from Kenya to Tanzania, which is a good thing. There needs to be more than that. I think Kenya needs to stamp the authority by saying, you know what, this has gone on long enough. Diplomacy is not working, you're not listening. So this is it. So strict regulations need to happen, because this is not, again, I mentioned, this is not the first time that Tanzania is pulling such a move. And again, if I was to talk about, if you're not sure if COVID-19 is that serious, because you can only wait and see how serious it's going to be if the US is anything to go by, considering what they did at first and what happened next. We have the highest death rates. So right now we can only watch Tanzania as they do whatever they're doing, because now they have begun opening up everything, including tourism. They're claiming to be fully booked till August. We can only watch, but now strict border movement. Nobody moves in and out of Tanzania, and cargo checks are done, and of course drivers are also checked and returned to Tanzania if there's a threat to it, which of course has repercussions to our trade, to our relations. There are so many repercussions to it, because we import quite a lot of things from Tanzania: tomatoes, onions, and right now the pricing of those goods has gone up, which of course means that cost of food also goes up in Kenya. So there's a whole cycle of things and events that are going to happen because of all this, the conflict. But what the president has done in terms of closing the border is the only thing that should happen.
All right. Well, it's a wait and see for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you so much, Kristen. That was Kristen Karimi. Thank you for your time. We do really, as Metropol TV, we do appreciate you.